Myself Padmaja, Associate Professor, Department of CSE, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, Hyderabad. Now, let us discuss about today a number of definitions and terminologies related to Introduction to C language. Now, before starting about C language, we should first know about the father of C language. So, Dennis Macalistair Ritchie is popularly known as the father of C and Unix. Now, Dennis Macalistair Ritchie, popularly known as DMR, is best known as the creator of C programming language and the co-creator of Unix operating system. And he started working on this language in Bell Laboratories, USA. Now, till today, C is used as the second most popular language in the world. Now, let us understand what are the significant features of C language. So, the significant features are C is a very powerful language, it is a very flexible language, more reliable, and it provides faster program execution. Then, it is basically a procedural language. That means the programmer requires to provide step-by-step instructions for the CPU to do a particular task. Now, the success of C language is due to its simplicity, due to its efficiency, flexibility, and small memory requirement. Now, it has a number of low-level features. That's why it is a very suitable language for developing a number of applications like compilers, assemblers, loaders, linkers, text editors, and so on. So, using this language, you can directly interact with the hardware. So, C's powerful and fast program execution comes from its ability to access the low-level commands. That means the commands which are used for accessing the hardware or to interact with the hardware. So, it has few features which are similar to assembly language, but most of the features are related to high-level language. So, C is known to be a high-level language. Then coming to its portable feature, C programs are portable. That means the same C program can run on different platforms on different machines. So the compiler and preprocessor makes it possible for the same C program to run on different PCs. Portability is one of the most important feature which has made this language popular. So whether you have a Unix operating system or a Mac OS or a Windows OS, same C program can work with little modification on different machines. Next is called, it has a wide variety of bit manipulation operators. Now, C programs can be manipulated using bits and it provides a wide variety of bit manipulation operators. Then it has the facility of modular programming. Now, modular programming approach is a very popular software design technique where a large project is divided into modules and each module is developed independently. So, in C programming, there is a function concept or functional approach is there using which you can independently design and prepare the modules. So, each function is known to be a module and the collection of functions together makes the complete program. So, it is a software design technique which increases the extent the software is composed into separate parts called modules. So, C language supports modular programming approach. Now, coming to the basic parts of a C program, that means what is the basic structure a C program follows. So, there are several sections in every C program. Certain sections are mandatory sections or compulsory sections. Certain sections are optional sections. So, let us have a look what are the different sections are there in a C program. One is called the documentation section, which is optional. But a documentation section improves the readability of the program, and in the documentation section you can write down the purpose of the program, the name of the creator, the author details, and so on. So, how to provide this documentation? For providing documentation, two types of comment lines are used in C. One is called single line comment and the other one is called multi-line comment. Single line comment is used double forward slash is used as a single line command. So one single line of instruction which is not compiled but it is used for documentation purpose you can write. Similarly, if you want to write multiple lines of documentation, then you can use forward slash with a star, again closing with, after writing multiple lines you can close it with a star and forward slash. Then this second section is called the preprocessor directives. Preprocessor directives begins with the symbol hash, and these are processed by the preprocessor before the compiler compiles the program. And to distinguish that it is not compiled, so the statement starts with the symbol hash. So the statements which instructs the preprocessor, that is your header files, various symbolic constants, various macros, you can write as a part of your preprocessor directives. A number of preprocessor directives are available to write in this section. See some examples. Suppose you want to include any header file, or if you want to include your own file, then you have to write hash include directive. If you want to define any constant, symbolic constant, then hash define pi, hash define max, anything, you can write these kind of simple macros also. You can write simple macros, you can write parameterized macros, you can define some symbolic constants which will be applied throughout the program. Then the third optional section is called the global declaration section. Now, these global variables are declared outside any function. So, which means that if a variable is declared to be global, then it can be used by any function in the program. So, there is no specific rule that global variables should be always declared at the top of the program, but it can be declared anywhere. But if it is not inside any function, then it is treated to be a global variable. So, global variable will have lifetime throughout the program and can be accessed by any function written in the program. Then the next most important section is called the main function section. So every C program must have a main function because the program execution starts with main and also ends with main. So it is just a name convention that is used in most of the programming languages that a function called main should be there. But some of the languages like Python do not have this concept also. Now, inside the main function, you can declare or you can write some local declaration or local variable declaration and processing statements. So, what you want to do in this function, you can write it. So, C language can have multiple number of functions. C language is a collection of a number of user-defined functions. So, you can have one of the function called main function, but other than that, you can write your own user-defined function. N number of user-defined functions can be written. Now, coming to the basic structure of the C program, that in this example, the documentation section is there, which is optional. Then preprocessor directives are there. As and when required, you need to write. And then there is a hash define section, which is also a preprocessor directive. Then followed by there are some global variables and global declaration of functions. If you want, you can do it. And then there is a main function, which is nothing but it is called an entry point to your program execution, followed by variable declarations. Then the processing statements are there and user defined functions are also available. So this is one of the important your structure of the C program, where different sections you have to know whether which is optional, which is mandatory, and based on that you need to write your C program. Now, the second most important definition is what do you mean by a C token? So, a token is nothing but a small building block of any program, okay, which is recognized by the compiler. So, what are the C tokens are there? If you want to write a C program, then you must understand what are the various tokens are there. So, coming to the first token, it is called identifiers. Next is called constants, then keywords, then operators, special characters, and so on. These are known as the C tokens. Now, let us start with the C token identifier. Identifier, what do you mean by an identifier? An identifier refers to certain entities which refers to a memory location. So, which identifies a memory location. So, identifier refers to a name given to some entities called variables, functions, structures, arrays, and so on. So, whenever I say int x is equal to 100, if I'll say int x is equal to 100, then it conveys two things. One is called what is the value of x, one is called where is x. So, where is x means x is in memory. So, it identifies some memory location. Similarly, if you write a function, then function will have some purpose, and where is the function means the function is there somewhere in memory which will have a starting address and ending address. So, that identifies the function. Next is called, if you define a structure or an array, every time you need to ask the same question, what is the address of the array? What is the address of the function? What is the address of the variable? So, that is called the identification for that entity. Now, the identifiers, whenever you write these identifier names, the identifier names must be unique and it follows certain rules for identifiers. Now, even let us have a look at the different identifiers. Here, int x and y both are integer type variables. Score is a float variable. Account balance is a double variable. Similarly, the identifier names follow certain rules, and the identifier names cannot be keywords or reserved words. Keywords and reserved words will have always predefined meaning. So you should not use the keywords as identifiers. Now, coming to the rules of identifiers, a valid identifier can have letters and digits and underscores. A combination of letters, digits, and underscores can be used, but the first letter should be the first character should be a letter or underscore only. So, both upper and lowercase letters are allowed in C language to write an identifier. You cannot use any keywords. Next, coming to the length of the identifier is always specified by the compiler. But if you are writing an identifier which is more than 30 characters or 31 characters, then it will identify up to 31 characters. After that, it will ignore it. But you can write up to any length. Then, let us see some examples of valid identifiers. Here's total, sum, average, underscore. It has started with an underscore, x, y underscore, then mark underscore 1, then x1. These are all valid identifiers because it has followed the rules of identifier. And similarly, invalid identifier 1x, it has started with a digit, so it is invalid. Then char is a keyword. Then x plus y plus is a special character which cannot be used. So, these are some valid and invalid identifiers. Next, token is called constants. So, constants are given to any variable or values in any programming language whose value do not change throughout the program, or once defined, its value do not change. That's why it is called a constant. So, constants are simply fixed values in any programming language. So, constants can be of different types. It can be an integer constant, it can be a float constant, it can be an octal, or it can be hexadecimal, or it may be a character constant. Different types of constants you can use in your program. Now, let us understand about some decimal constants or integer constants. 10, 20, 400, 500, minus 550, minus 100, anything you write, a fixed number you write, those are called your integer constant. Then real or floating point constants are nothing but the sum of the real values. 10.3, 20.2, these are all real values. Then your octal constants are, these are the octal constants which starts with a leading 0. Then hexadecimal constant starts with 0x. It may be small x or it may be capital X. So it starts with 0x. So these are the examples of hexadecimal constants. Then character constant, individual characters enclosed in single quotes are called character constant. Character A, character B, character X, or it may be character 5, it may be character 8. Anything you can write as a character constant which is enclosed in single quotes. Similarly, you can write a group of characters enclosed in double quotes. Those are called string constants like PPS, C program, IARE. These are all examples of string constants. Now, how to define a constant in C programming? So, to define a constant in C programming, there are two ways are available. One is called using the constant keyword and otherwise using the preprocessor directive called hastify. So, the constant keyword you can use to define a constant. Just before writing the name of the variable, you can write the word constant. So, otherwise, you can use hash define pi 3.14. So, pi is a simple constant. Wherever pi appears, it will be substituted by the value 3.14. So, these are the two ways are there to write a constant in C language. Now, you can see in this example, constant float pi 3.141. That means because of the usage of constant keyword, now the value of pi is now fixed throughout the program. It is 3.141 only. So, whenever you will try to change or modify the value of pi to 3.45, then you will get error because it is declared as a constant, not as a variable. The next important token is called keywords. So, what do you mean by a keyword? Keywords are nothing but reserved words or predefined words which has a clear meaning and which has special meaning to the compiler. Now, keywords are part of the syntax and they cannot be used as an identifier. So, C is a very case sensitive language. So, all the keywords must be written in lowercase only. So, let us see what are the keywords available in C. Now, keywords available in C language. So, in ANSYS C, there were basically 32 keywords they have defined, but in the newer version, the number of keywords have increased. Now, next is called a variable. What do you mean by a variable? Variable is nothing but an identifier which is used to store some value. And the value of the variable may change during the processing statements. So, a variable can change during the execution of the program and update always the stored value in it. Now, a single variable can be used at multiple locations in a program and a variable must be declared first and then used in a C program. Now, a variable name follows the rules of identifier. So, you can use the characters or digits or underscore to define a variable name. Then, C is a case sensitive language. So, uppercase and lowercase variables are treated as two different variables, not the same variable. That means, example, your height is there, which is a variable, and capital height, HEIGST, if you write, then these are treated as two different variables, not the same variable. Now, let us understand what is the scope of the variable. Now, the scope of the variable is simply the lifetime of the variable. That means where a variable you can use and how long a variable exists or alive. So, the block of code under which a variable is active and alive, that is called the lifetime of the variable and the scope of the variable. Now, there are different places, 3 different places where a variable you can declare in a programming language. One is called inside a function. Inside a function, if you declare a variable, then it is simply known as a local variable. If you declare a variable outside of all functions, then it is known to be a global variable. Then, if you will declare a variable as a part of function parameters or arguments, then also these are known as the local variables to that function and also known as your formal parameters. So, these are the different places where you can use the variables or declare the variables. One is as a local variable, one is as a global variable, one is as a formal parameters in the parameter section of the functions. Now, let us differentiate between local and global variables. Local variables are declared inside a function and whereas global variables are declared outside of all functions. The scope of the local variable is confined to the block in which that variable has been declared. But the scope of the global variable is global. That means throughout the program, the variable can be accessed by any function. Then the default variable of the local variables are normally 0 or garbage, that depends on the compiler. Whereas the default variable of the global variables is always 0. Next, coming to the data types. So each variable in C language has an associated data type. Now, the data type tells about the different requirement of memory and the type of data that can be stored into that variable. So, there are basically three categories of data types in C language. One is called the basic or fundamental or primitive data types. Second category is called the derived data types, and the third category of data types is called the user-defined data types. Now, first let us understand what are the fundamental data types or basic data types or primitive data types. Now, this is the picture of data types in C programming. So, we have basic data types, derived and user-defined. In basic data types, you have int, float, double, char. These are called the basic data types. Then under derived, we have arrays, pointers, functions. These are called derived. Then under user-defined, we have enum, structure, union, and so on, type def. These are all user-defined data types. Now, let us start with the primitive data types. Now, primitive or fundamental data types or the basic data types are int, float, char, double, and void. So, some of the books you will find void as a separate data type. In some of the books you will find the void as a basic data type. So, but the uses of void is different from this four data types int, float, char, and double. So, we will also discuss what is the uses of void data type, where you can use, and what is the uses of this primitive data types. Now, if you talk about the integer data types, you can write two types of integers to save memory. One is called short integer and long integer. In a 32-bit or a 64-bit computer, the size of integer is 4 bytes. Now, if you want to save memory, then you can go for short integers, which will take 2 bytes only. So, 2 bytes of space you can save it. Otherwise, if you go for long integer, it also takes 4 bytes, so which is same as declaring as integer. Similarly, if you want to indicate that what type of data a variable should contain, whether it is only positive data or it can be positive or negative, then you can have signed integer and unsigned integer. If a variable is having signed int, then you can store both positive and negative, and it is the default one. That means without mentioning the signed keyword, you can store both positive and negative type of data. But if you mention that the variable is declared to be unsigned int, then you can store only positive integers into that variable. That is the basic difference. Then similarly, if you want to store real-time data or floating point data, then you can declare it as float. Then character, it can be signed character and unsigned character like integers, and double and long double. When your memory requirements are more, you can go for long double or long double also. So you can see the differences. So void is a primitive data type. Under integer you have short integer, normal integer, and long integer. Again, each type is signed or unsigned depending upon the nature of the data, whether it is positive or negative, signed or unsigned you can write. Then under floating point, you have simple float is there. Then if your memory requirements are more or precision, you need higher precision, then you can go for double or long float or long double and long double also. Then under character, again signed character and unsigned character. Now, there may be another question related to data types and their ranges. So you need to understand every character data type will always have the size is 1 byte. Short integer 2 bytes, long integer 4 bytes, long integers again 4 bytes, long integer 8 bytes, float is 4 bytes, double is 8 bytes, and so on. And these are the range of values that normally at present the 32-bit and 64 bit computer provides these ranges of values. So in future, these ranges and the sizes may change. Now, if you want to check what is the exact memory requirement of any variable, then you can use this size of operator, which is a special type of operator to check the memory requirement of any variable. So you can simply write what is the size of integer. So we'll get the output as 4 bytes. What is the size of short integer? You are getting 2 bytes. So what is the size of long integer? It is 4 bytes. What is the size of float? It is again 4 bytes. What is the size of character? It is 1 byte. What is the size of double? It is 8 bytes. What is the size of long double? 16 bytes. And so on. You can verify in your system that based on your system type, you can check the size of each data type. Now, this is also same related to the data types and the format specifiers. That means if you want to display or read then any short integer, then what is the format specifier? It is %d. Similarly, for signed short integer or unsigned short integer, you can differentiate that for signed short integer we write %d, but for unsigned we write %u. Then for integer you can use %d. For signed integer or unsigned integer, it is same %d and %u. Then long integer, it is %ld. Then signed long integer also same. Signed unsigned long integer %lu. Long int when you are using, then it is $LLD, LLD. Then unsigned long int, it is $LLU. Then similarly for float, you have %f. For double, you can write as long float is LF, you can write. For long double, you can write capital LF. Next, after understanding the primitive or the basic data types, let us discuss about the derived data types. So, the derived data types means which are derived from the fundamental data types only, and we have arrays, pointers and functions. These are our derived data types. Then coming to user-defined data types, the user-defined data types are structures, then unions, then enum, typedef, etc. are called the user-defined data types. Now, there is a special type of data type which comes under fundamental data types, that is called void data type. But void is normally an empty data type and you cannot simply use void to declare a variable like this. Now, which is normally used for returning any data from the functions. If a function returns nothing, then you can write it is void. So, when you declare a function as void, that means it doesn't have to return anything. Or when a function takes no arguments or parameters, you can also use void. So, let us see one example. So, here swap is a function which takes 2 arguments, both are of integer types, and it returns nothing. So, void keyword is used for indicating what type of value it returns. If it returns nothing, then you write void. Similarly, in the next example, getNumbers is a function which returns some integer, so write int, but which takes no argument, so you can also write void over here. So, the usage of void is mostly in functions. Now, let us discuss about what are the operators in C language. So, C language has a rich set of operators. So, operator is nothing but a symbol which operates on a value or on a variable. Now, C has wide range of operators. Let us discuss one by one. One is called arithmetic operators, relational operators, logical operators, increment decrement operators, bitwise operators, assignment operators, conditional or ternary operators and special operators. These are the different operators in C language. Now, just have a look regarding the different types of operators. And we have a number of special operators as the comma operator, size of operator, reference operator, dereference operator, membership operator. These are known as the special type of operators. Now, let us have a look regarding the different types of operators. So, if you look at here, then the arithmetic operators are plus, minus, multiplication, division and modulus. The relational operators are your all comparison operators and equality operators together makes it relational. Less than equal to, greater than equal to, equals to, and not equals to. Then assignment operators are two types. One is called simple assignment and shorthand or compound assignment. So simple assignment is nothing but the single equal to, then plus equal to, minus equal to, division equal to. These are all your compound assignment operators. Then coming to the logical operators, you have logical and, or, and not are the three logical operators. Then bitwise operators are your bitwise and, bitwise or, bitwise XOR, then followed by your left shift, right shift, and your ones complement. These are the bitwise operators. Then increment decrement operators are plus plus and minus minus. So if it is used before a variable name, it is known as the pre-increment or pre-decrement. If it is used after the variable name, then post-increment or post-decrement. Then conditional operators are there, so which is comprising of your question mark and colon. So it may be single ternary or double ternary also you can write. And special operators are your unary plus, comma, size of operator, and so on. So we have also discussed here the different types of special operators in C language. Now coming to the escape sequences in C language, many programming languages support the escape sequence, your concept. Now, when a character is preceded by a backslash, then it is called an escape sequence and it has a special meaning to the compiler. So, in C language also, whenever you want to provide tab space, so backslash T, that means it inserts a tab in the text at that particular point. Then, similarly, your slash B, it inserts a backspace. Then slash N, it inserts a new line. Then slash R, it inserts a carriage return. Then slash F, it inserts a form field. Then your single quote, if you want to insert a double quote character, then backslash double quote. Then double slash you can write, which insert a backslash character in the text at that point. So these are some of the escape sequences popularly used in C language. Now you can have a look at the example. Suppose n is equal to 50. Now here how many escape sequences I have used in the printf statement? You are learning C. Do you know C language? I want to display this statement in 5 different lines. So I have used backslash n in different places. And the C language I want to put quotes. So your backslash single quote again ended with backslash quote. Then again backslash n I have used for a new line. Then double quotes I want to give. So you can see over here that backslash double quotes and ended with again backslash double quotes. So these are the different escape sequences you can provide based on the formatting that you want to do. Thank you so much. In this video, we just discuss about the basics or preliminaries about the C language. So the fundamentals of C language consist of the identifiers, the C tokens, all the C tokens, that is your identifiers, constants, keywords, operators, special operators, and so on. Followed by we discuss about the different types of data types used in C language. Thank you so much.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.